Hey, welcome again to another Moonshot episode, and I trust that your week's been fantastic wherever you are around the world. So this last couple of weeks, I can reflect on a couple of movies that I've watched, and one of them particularly stood out. So the movie was titled Papillon, and was based on the life of Henry Charrier, a safecracker who was falsely framed, or actually successfully framed, for murdering someone. This is back in the 1930s in France, and he was sentenced to serve a time period in a penal colony in French Guiana. And his life adventure or story is published in this book titled Papillon. And the challenge and tragedy and the ignominy of his exercise and his experience is detailed in the movie, and gives great cause for us to reflect on the reasons that we have to survive, and why we stay alive, and why we look to take on new challenges because of our why, because of our purpose, because of what it is that defines us, or we're looking to be defined by. As I reflect on that, there's numerous incidences, numerous experiences that we have where at times people form an opinion of us, and that's not based on factual information, and sometimes that becomes a rumor, and that gets spread and shared, and we might feel uncomfortable. Now, I want to tell you that you don't need to feel uncomfortable about what other people say about you, because that's simply just their opinion, and you don't need to be fearing for other people's opinions. The bigger message that I wanted to share with you is one that continues. I think I shared one in September of last year, an episode in here if you wanted to go back and have a look. I believe it was titled Face the Challenge. Is the challenges are given to us for our growth. I talk often about growth only being beyond the boundary of comfort and challenge. So as you look to experience or look for the purpose, the reason that you're going through challenge, then mentally, emotionally, neurally, holistically, you're able to endure greater challenge and greater trial and deeper experience because of that purpose that drives you through this. Now, I've often been a follower of martial arts, and I practiced and used to compete in Taekwondo when I was younger. And there are books on martial arts that in business we learn from, and possibly one of the greatest from there is The Art of War, in writings from Sun Tzu as a leader of his army. What I wanted to share today was I managed to pick up a limited edition copy of this book titled The Art of Samurai. And The Art of the Samurai covers a number of things about the prefecture and about the station, the royalty, the purpose in organizing different armies in the samurai. But the weapon of choice for the samurai was generally the katana. Now, katana is a curved sword blade, and this is something that's created over a period of time and much trial. So the katana is formed from tama hagane, and this is a Japanese term for dual steel, and it's a mix, and this steel is formed over an immense process. So you start off with 3 days and nights of heating sand and carbon, and after that 3 days and nights, then the mix, without becoming molten, is again folded and hammered and beaten and heated over and over and over again for a similar period of time. Then there's a process of channel forging to separate a harder and a softer level of carbon, and I'll tell you the reasons why and that a little later. But there's 2 mixes of metal in this one blade. Then there's a process of clay coating and firing, and then after the firing there is a process of quenching, where the heated metal is dipped in water to immediately cool it. Now, the process of two different types of carbon mixes is so that the spine of the sword with a different carbon mix will contract at a different rate to the outer coating which forms the blade, and so you get this nice curve in there. Now, in this process of hardening and quenching, 1 in 3 of the blades become so brittle they actually break because of cracking under pressure. That's followed by another 2 weeks almost of polishing with different levels and grains of polishing stone to give this powdered mix and this clouded mix on the blade that will slice through metal and bone and armor. Then the blade is fixed and decorated. So again, as I mentioned, about 6 months of time to process one blade. Now, that process of preparation is a little similar to the references that Abraham Lincoln and the Bulldog Prime Minister, oh my goodness, I've forgotten for an instant here, come on, work with me, the Bulldog English Prime Minister, Winston Churchill. So they both referred to this process, but that was in preparation. So adversity and challenge is for preparation. What are you going to do after the adversity and challenge? Why go through this process of 6 months to form a blade? Well, you don't want the blade to crack or to break or to be beaten down by someone else's blade. You want the most finely honed, effective weapon to be able to perform the work that you need to do. So, Churchill, Lincoln, they both quoted and referred to, if you have 8 hours or 6 hours, can't remember the period of time, but if you have 8 hours to chop down a tree, you spend the first 7 in sharpening your axe. So preparation for the task that it's hand. How does this relate to this katana and the aspect of adversity? Well, if you're going to prepare yourself for challenges, there are times when in your life you are going to be smelted. You're going to be mixed with other things. You are going to be beaten and hammered by influences outside you, or conflicts or pressures in your studies, in your growth, in your relationships, in your life and in decisions. You're going to have to powder coat yourself so that you can endure. You're going to have to be refined by being heated and placed in situations that will cause you to think larger than yourself, to look for and reinvigorate the purpose and the vision that you have for yourself, and then be dipped in some cold water that'll wake you up but harden you for the next sequence, the next part of the process in your growth and your individual development. Now, it doesn't matter whether that's in sports or in business, in finances, in decisions in life, in relationships, in your health. You must know that you'll have challenges, and you need to be telling yourself that I can get through this challenge, and what I need to be doing in this process of going through the challenge is I need to be looking for reinforcing my why that will solidify and harmonize and beautify the transformation in the process that I'm going through. Live, love, and serve.